Today's episode of Northern Lights is presented by North Star Law Group, a trusted partner for small businesses in Minnesota's legal cannabis industry. Whether you've already applied for a license or just getting started, attorney Jen Riza and her team can help you build a compliant business, identify and navigate risks, put together an application, and keep you informed about the ever-changing Minnesota cannabis landscape. Are you ready to add North Star to your team? Visit northstarlaw.com/cannabis and let North Star Law Group guide you through confidently opening your doors. Again, that's northstarlaw.com/cannabis. Taylor Swift said, "All my friends smell like weed and babies, and I want babies to smell like weed." Welcome to Northern Lights Podcast.
What song is that?
I don't know. It's one of the lyrics off for a new album that was getting traction all over the internet, and I was like, wow, all of my friends do smell either like weed or like new babies.
Or like new babies.
I hate it.
You just like the weed.
I just like the weed. Yeah, I'm anti-baby.
Which kind of goes back to your original point. Be a lot cooler.
It would be a lot cooler if pregnant mom smoked weed.
Welcome back to Northern
Welcome
Lights
back.
Podcast.
Another episode of Northern Lights.
I got to get back to electioneering.
Perfect. We'll make
Let's
it fast.
Fucking go.
And we're back. Another episode of Northern Lights. I'm your host, Tanner, joined today by John and Jordan. Hey, guys.
Happy Friday before the election.
Happy Friday before the election. Happy post-Halloween.
Ooh, yeah. You do anything? You guys do anything for Halloween?
So I took a cooking class of fall flavors. We learned how to make pumpkin soup.
Hell
Not
yeah.
necessarily Halloween related, but very fall.
That
and
is-
so delicious.
It's seasonal. so
Yeah.
it's- yeah.
And it was Thai soup. Just a flavor profile that I've not really
God.
perfected in my own kitchen that now I feel like I have at least a starting point.
That's awesome.
What about you guys? How was your Halloween?
I turned my lights off and watched
There you go.
things in the basement so nobody could see us.
Was there candy outside?
Nope.
You're the people. We're
We're the people. We're the problem. The thing is like I think I described this on a previous episode. Is that our road is a very natural divider line
Oh, yeah.
of neighborhoods. It's a
Yeah.
busy road, and so I reckon not a lot of parents would love their kids walking along our road. So we're just like, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because we can just go watch more Golden Bachelorette
There we go.
and enjoy our evening.
There was a Onion headline. It was like, family huddles up in the living room with lights off on Halloween.
It's so true.
That's me.
Yeah.
What were you up to on Halloween?
We carved pumpkins. I tried making like a mushroom cloud.
Okay,
And
cool.
it looked more like a Basquiat cricket mask.
Okay.
Like it came out looking spooky. So yeah.
I love it. I'm here
It
for
was
that.
first time carving pumpkins and Lord knows how long. So
Here's my Halloween take. The kids that go up to the house with the bowl of candy and take the whole bowl of candy are the same people that in the circle spark the whole bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And just hit the whole thing and
Yeah.
hand it to you already, Chaz.
and it's just like the whole thing's just
Yeah. Jordan looks like he agrees with me.
I could hear my heart rate.
so you know who you are.
Yeah.
Well, I just, before we jump to today's news, which we do have a lot to talk about, I had one piece of news that's not cannabis related, but is Halloween related here in Minnesota. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there were reports that possible human remains were found in a river in northern Minnesota. Like, I know it sounds like, wow, that's terrible. The police went and checked it out. It was a Halloween skeleton that they found. Apparently, it was highly detailed. But the police said, we take all these calls very seriously, and we wanted to make sure that we took this one seriously as well. So if you see any skeletons in the river, maybe ask yourself, man, it's October 31st. Could it maybe be a plastic skeleton?
A full
Can't be.
no.
No.
No, it's a full human.
It's a full human. But just a skeleton.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to some cannabis news. I saw that on the way in and was like, wow, human remains found in river turned out to be plastic skeleton. Dope.
What do you know?
Yeah. So we've got a lot to talk about today. As you mentioned, it is the election. And if you guys are listening on the day that this comes out, it's the election today. Please go and vote.
Go vote.
If you are listening to this after today, don't go and vote. You won't be successful because the election is over. You guys might know more about the results of that than we do. In fact, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, you definitely do. But what we want to talk about today is why this election is so important for cannabis. Now, we know that this election is going to take quite a while to really tabulate and count out. Yeah. On the national side, we know it takes a long time to figure out that electoral college. And on the state side, there's a number of districts that are really close, that it's just going to take time for that to keep working out.
And we changed a lot of rules
since
the last presidential election, so that's going to just cause delays naturally. Yeah,
100%.
Things different.
So we've got people voting this election day. You guys have heard it talked about in this podcast before, but we're voting for the control of that Minnesota House of Representatives. There's also an election for a special Minnesota Senate seat that's going to potentially determine the control of the Minnesota Senate as well. So the legislature, even though we're not all voting on senators, both are sort of up in the air with this election. Yeah. We also are voting on our federal House of Representatives, our federal Senate, and did you guys know we're voting for president this year? The White House is also part of this election.
What's that?
Yeah, I know, right? So there's a lot that will really go into impact how cannabis looks. And it's important to note, I want to give a shout out to the judicial races, even though people, I think, sleep on those. Yeah, I know. We saw that the judiciary can have a huge impact on how cannabis is implemented, how policies work. It was illegal to pull people over and then search their car because of the smell of cannabis because of our courts before it was the legislature. Yep. So having people in office, even though I know not every judge is like responding to polls on how do you feel about cannabis legalization? What would you do?
But still, especially in a state like Minnesota, get your early ballot, look them up, figure it out, find your sample ballot, look these people up because, everyone on that ballot matters in the end.
Yeah. So let's talk about the things that can change. Minnesota House, Minnesota Senate, we already touched on. We need DFL to remain in control of those because that is how we get pro-cannabis legislation. Yes. We can't have things rolled back. We fought so hard for this. Having, even before our industry sets up, having things potentially thrown into the muck of that would just be terrible.
And we know it's not every Republican who's anti-cannabis in the chamber, but we've been down there for years. We know they are few and far between, and the party that brought us legalization is the one that's going to continue to be strongest on it.
How often do you think about Paul Gazelka? I'm just kidding.
I think every time I see a State Farm commercial, my brain goes to Paul Gazelka.
Man, shout out to the former Speaker of the Minnesota House who was just so anti-cannabis. Former is my favorite word to use in that sentence. So it's really important that people go and vote. Be watching for that. Obviously, today is election day, the day that this comes out. So we don't need to tell you to go and vote, but be looking at how is this going to impact. And if we have Kamala Harris get sent to the White House, we have Governor Tim Walz become Vice President Tim Walz. We will then have Governor Peggy Flanagan in charge of picking the new director of the Office of Cannabis Management.
Wow. That is actually... Yeah, that's going to be exciting because I do think everything is in a sort of stasis until Election Day. So hopefully you guys are getting news that we've all been waiting for weeks now.
Yeah, because we've talked about it. Walz, if he does get elected, has until Inauguration Day to resign his governorship. Yeah. So we'll still have this transitional time. But, I mean...
That's January 20th?
Right around there, yeah. But I mean, we're at a year since Aaron Dupree was appointed and then resigned. Yep. I think the odds that Governor Walz gets someone in before January is slim to none. Maybe?
Dude, I'll take that bet.
All right. There we go.
I take that.
All right, here we go. We're gonna move the mic so we can shake hands. John, if someone gets appointed before Governor Walz resigns and becomes vice president, or if he loses the election until January 20th, until someone new
comes back home,
I will get you the fattest of dabs that I can possibly find, or some other qualifying equivalent.
I'll get you the dankest of buds.
There we go. You guys heard it here first, documented live on Northern Lights Podcast.
And I'll tell you why I feel that is
for sure.
They are going to be doing the entire lottery in December, the one that's open for everybody. And I don't think they want to open up the lottery to essentially most of America, because it is not has nothing to do with like being from Minnesota.
For sure.
Without a director.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's like, I think by that point, Charlene Briner will either commit to it, which I think is a low probability, or they have vetted candidates. It's not like they've been doing the work. It's just like waiting and waiting. I hope they're just waiting until licenses are out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors that perhaps there are people in leadership positions in OCM today that maybe could be candidates for that director role. I've heard, Jess's name, the social
Jess
equity
Jackson,
director, floated as perhaps maybe someone who's been around, seen what cannabis looks like.
She'd get my vote.
All right.
Like she, as I understand it right now, is the only person at OCM who has worked in the cannabis industry as a compliance officer. So it's like,
wow.
That's
important.
Or we could put a cop.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, Jordan. What do you?
Yeah.
Doubt.
I heard the chief of police in Minneapolis might be needing a new job, so we could. No. Just kidding. Yeah, no. I think, having someone in that director role who is favorable towards cannabis. I know you joke, but that's so important.
It's kind of the whole game.
Yeah.
Like, especially like we know what the industry is, and it's confusing. Like we're gonna have this rescheduling. Like someone's gonna have to figure all this out for the industry, for the consumers, and for the legislators. And we can't just have someone who's like, oh, I know policy, but I don't know lick about cannabis in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that title interim can only get you so far. And Charlene's been doing great, but I think we need to figure out who's going to run this for the next, 5-10 years, you'd hope. All right. Well, so we'll say it one more time. So fucking vote.
Go
if you haven't yet, go do it. If you missed election day, where were you? I mean, we've been talking about this for so long.
One thing we neglected is
for sure.
If Kamala and Walz win, Peggy Flanagan becomes governor, and then our man Bobby Joe Champion goes from president of the Senate to lieutenant governor. So I'm not sure. Would we need 2 special elections?
So, that's such a great question.
After the initial election, like, would we have one in January? Like that, I'm still.
I believe you would only need one for the Senate seat of Bobby Joe Champion.
Yeah, but that seat would then.
Don't tell me election season goes into next year.
They're gonna have to do it in like early 2025 because I know session starts in February.
Yeah.
So we have that month, and that's what I've been thinking about too. Because it's like the Republicans could even it up or lose one, and then that special election could happen. But what's his seat in North Minneapolis or St. Paul?
Yeah, I think unlikely to switch to becoming Republican.
Won't come from that seat, but
still having an
empty seat. If it's empty, that's where the problem.
That will be really big because we should say here in Minnesota, the president of the Senate does not get to be the deciding vote. Unlike that federal Senate, vice president gets to do it. Here in Minnesota, if we have 33-33, we're stuck.
We're stuck. Nothing's happening. Yeah. These are the things I think about, and I cry.
This is why we smoke weed. All right, well, let's move on. Obviously, election's important. You guys know just more than we do, and I really hope that by the time we have our next episode, when we're recording this time next week, maybe we'll have a better picture on what that legislature will look like in the next session. Hopefully, we'll know who future president is. A lot of stuff that I hope we know a week from today.
How you no, the Senate's like a foregone conclusion.
It's foregone. Nah. It's an election. Anything can happen.
I actually saw the GOP candidate driving his own truck with his face on it.
Wow. I want a truck with my face on it. No. Instead, here's what I do want. I want good city regulation around cannabis. That's one of those things that just gets me so excited. Some people think, Tanner, watching government work is just so fun, but only at the state level. At the local level, it's just so boring. And what I say is it's even more fun. I tuned into the Minneapolis City Council meeting yesterday where they were debating cannabis zoning, and they had decided to make it Cat Day in the city. So the city chamber was filled with cats. and the city council
like
was
pictures
like,
cats?
no, like actual live feline cats.
Like people's cats from home?
I imagine. I sure hope
my
so.
My cats would hate that.
And so then you
like,
have this cat brought in public just to like be named Cat Day. And so I would say to people that say city government is boring, no.
Boring's not the right word.
No. Boring's not the right word, because if you watch that cat segment, you then got to watch nearly 3 more hours of city government meetings. Just what everyone wants to do on a fun Thursday morning.
Come for the cats, stay for
stay for the bureaucracy. Yeah. The meeting was extended slightly because protesters did shut down the meeting. It was.
Why would protesters be protesting a cannabis vote?
Oh well, it's
or
not
Cat Day. What could they possibly be?
What could they possibly be protesting in Minneapolis? Man, a lot. And the debate around how police should operate in Minneapolis. What is the duty of a police officer? Do they actually have to help people when they call for help? Are questions that are being debated.
Their neighbor shoots them in the
neck.
When
their neighbor shoots them. Yeah, a lot of things I think the city of Minneapolis is trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And cannabis policy checked off that list because on Thursday they finally passed zoning regulations 12-1 to approve the ordinance that will figure out where businesses can operate and what the heck they can do in the city of Minneapolis. Now, we have talked about this a lot in past episodes, so if you're a viewer of the show, a regular listener, you already know. If you are not, go check that out. Earlier this season, you can go and download those episodes. You can stream on YouTube because the Minneapolis rules are pretty big, pretty expansive. So we're not going to jump into all of them today, but I do want to highlight one pretty big change that came out of the meeting yesterday. Friends of ours, Bob and Aaron over at CannaJoy. Yeah, shout out to CannaJoy. Have talked about how the barrier between businesses, the minimum that there be at least 500 feet between cannabis dispensaries, is, maybe good in idea, but what would logically happen is if CannaJoy says, hey, we want to become a dispensary, but someone had already moved in closer to them, including social equity applicants that just get the first stab at it. Mm-hmm. Suddenly now they can't open.
No.
Well, thankfully, yesterday, that provision was removed. So the distance between dispensaries no longer required in Minneapolis. There's no requirement that tobacco shops be 300 feet away from each other.
I lived by a Speedway across the street from a Holiday.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure both of them were selling tobacco products without a problem.
Right.
And now it's looking like in Minneapolis, that won't be a problem as well. You still have to be 300 feet away from schools, but in terms of being away from dispensaries, you can be right next to them.
Nothing like solving the problems you created. Do you know who the holdout? What her reasoning was? Since you listened in.
Yeah, her reasoning is that the amendment was introduced at the last hour, literally sent to them the day before, and the fact that they had multiple planning commissions look at this, agree. Yeah, that's probably something we should have. The other reason is that in Minneapolis, there actually is a pretty big distance that new liquor stores need to be away from other liquor stores. St. Paul is similar, where there are sort of like territories carved up.
And liquor stores, you cannot go to the liquor store, use a bunch of the product, and like walk around coherently around a park.
I absolutely agree with you. I 100% agree. And that is why many of the city council members looked at that and said, no, that's not why are we worried about two dispensaries being next to each other?
Over half the city bikes everywhere.
Well, and it's especially important when they've limited retail to essentially just like 10% of the city for cannabis businesses. Setting a minimum requirement like this would drastically reduce.
Bring it down maybe 5 times.
Yeah. So glad to see them move forward. Minneapolis and St. Paul have now finalized their language, so we know what those rules are for the 2 biggest cities.
It's crazy.
Other cities are still working away at that, figuring out, are we going to have municipal shops? What are our zoning regulations going to look like? Lots of questions still to figure out, but at least in Minneapolis and St. Paul, we've got that done.
And we knew they needed to do it first.
Yeah.
Like we got to have our capital in our biggest city.
Yeah, we could potentially have people be getting licenses for pre-approval, but licenses in a couple months here, a couple weeks here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's like we really...
Yeah, hopefully soon that they're going to go to a city and say, I want to open here.
The 31st was the deadline that all applicants got for their deficiencies.
Yep.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
So... We're gonna at least know who's not in soon.
And that's what will be interesting is maybe by the time this episode comes out, like it's Friday. I don't think they're gonna do anything in the next hour of business.
Tuesday, 8 p.m. They'll send out the email.
Totally possible. So people do need to be on the lookout for there could be rapid changes in this. You know, it's the hurry up and wait. We're in that waiting part, but that hurry up hasn't stopped. That will come very quick here.
Yep.
So keep watching that. Keep watching it. But at least in Minneapolis and St. Paul, you don't have to keep watching that ordinance process.
Yeah, and you can just go find where those properties are with the new rules and make a plan.
Yeah, I'm ready for a very entrepreneurial. That's the word. Real estate agent to come up with a guide of here are all of the cannabis-friendly real estate options in Minneapolis because we now know where they are.
Yeah. Chris Lindahl, if you're watching.
Yeah, Chris Lindahl, if you're watching, we'd love to have you on the podcast. We'll stretch our arms.
Have you guys seen the Black Ops?
Oh
posters?
My God.
That made me like almost crash my car laughing. I was like,
amazing.
Regional marketing, dude. That's amazing.
So good. Well, and like the first to really like spoof that I've seen at least.
Like in a broader media. Yes. Like I've seen a lot of Minnesota people try to explain it to other people like who are in Minnesota people in media.
But not Call
and it's
of
just
Duty.
Like weird. Yeah, but like Call of Duty doing it. I was like, good for you, Chris Lindahl.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're really.
So here's the question. You guys might know the answer to this. Is Call of Duty an Activision game? Is that that's correct? Activision is partially based in Minnesota. So it would make sense that they have
one of them
such specific branding.
Yeah.
I used to work with a guy who is a game tester in Minnesota.
Same.
That must be such a I mean, I said to him, it must be such a cool job. And he went, no.
Play a lot of shitty games.
In my mind, it must be a cool job.
Well, the grass is always greener.
Yeah. I imagine it's like playing the games when they don't work and you know they're bad.
Well, I think it's just a lot of like reporting bugs.
Yeah.
Finding bugs and then just making just
so it's like, hey, we need you just like run around this fucking map for like 3 hours. And if you don't move for 5 seconds, your supervisor will know. And it's like,
well, speaking of running in circles for hours, how's that for a transition?
There we go.
We got some news from the department, or the DEA, Jesus Christ, the department, the Drug Enforcement Agency. Woo! Thank you. Oh my God, we're cutting all of that. Speaking of running around in circles, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the good old DEA. Man, we got some news from them that rescheduling process that we knew was going to take long, that we knew probably wasn't going to get done by the year.
No, not before an election.
Not going to get done before 2025. So this is sort of breaking news from when we're recording today. Just yesterday, we learned that the chief administrative law judge, the person in charge of this process, put out an order basically saying that the information that they have is just insufficient. They need more data from people. They need more experts to weigh in. And they're going to schedule time for people to give that hearing likely in January or February, setting this process back months. I remember people saying hopefully this would happen by the election. Maybe we would have this. It could be that fun October surprise rescheduling. Now here we are, hours before the election, and looking like it's not going to happen anytime soon. Are you guys surprised that this is taking even longer than I think our longest expectations were?
No, but I also don't think it's like the worst.
And it's not bad.
All. Yeah.
It's slow, but it's not.
Like the industry as I know it was completely unprepared to be rescheduled. Like they didn't have the knowledge, like all like the freaking pharmacy rules.
Yep.
And like there's so much more bullshit in Schedule 1 than there is when it's illegal and unregulated.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah.
I'm glad they're taking time to like really flesh out what this means for the industry, because it's not about the consumer, I'll tell you that much. They're trying to find how can we do this and not fuck up a bunch of businesses. I wouldn't be shocked if cannabis businesses lobbied for this delay.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I think like it makes perfect sense that 7 months ago when we got word that it's officially recommended that they're going to reschedule it, I think I remember sitting in the studio with you, having Jen in, and asking like, what does this actually mean? Like, we've been selling cannabis under this structure for hemp for a while. There's adult use states, but now that we've got this rescheduling, like, what does that really impact? And people talked about like research or funding, but like the day-to-day impacts, I think we still don't.
We still don't
totally know.
Like, what's this going to do in Colorado? Who knows?
Yeah. And what I do like is now we're getting an opportunity for Minnesota to set up their market without it having to be the first trial under, man, what does this look like under Schedule 3?
What is this? Yeah.
Oh. Well, talking about the DEA, the department, the whatever you want to call it, that drug enforcement agency, makes me feel like I gotta eat some edibles.
Oh yeah.
Should we?
What sort?
Oh, well, we're gonna talk about that right when we get back. Ready to kick off your home grow? We've got the perfect hookup for you. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. They've got everything from fast flowering strains to unique hybrids, all ready for growing in Minnesota. And guess what? Our listeners get an exclusive deal. Use the code NL10 for a 10% discount on your entire order. Don't miss out and get started with the best seeds. Start your growth strong with MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Remember, NL10 for 10% off at MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Grab your seeds today.